Access to Democracy is made possible by donations from the following organizations. Thomson Reuters, a global company with expertise and insight to unravel complex situations in the areas of law, tax, compliance, government, and media. Their worldwide network of journalists and editors keep customers up to speed on relevant global events. Thomson Reuters, The Answer Company. Crutchfield Dermatology, a full-service treatment center and Medi-Spa in Eagan. Their goal is to help you look good and feel great with beautiful skin. The Minnesota Twins are looking forward to another great season in 2023, led by the return of All-Stars Carlos Correa and Brian Buxton. With the return of numerous players who were injured in 2022 and some new acquisitions, another division crown and a return to the World Series are in their sights. Established in 2007, 45th Parallel Spirits was among the first 50 micro-distilleries in the United States. Based in New Richmond, Wisconsin, all aspects of production occur at our facility. If you're interested in visiting and learning more about the 45th Parallel Distillery, please check our website and plan a visit to tour our facility and taste our spirits. Truestone Financial, with locations in Minnesota and Wisconsin, has proudly served its members since 1939. Truestone engages, educates, and supports its members to ensure they have the tools to empower their financial well-being. Truestone Financial, your neighborhood credit union. Learn more at truestone.org.
Hello and welcome to Access to Democracy. Thank you for joining us. I'm Bill Raker, your host for this edition of the program. We're welcoming our guest today, Matthew Carter, Executive Director of the Dakota County Historical Society. Matt, welcome to Access to Democracy.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
We're going to talk with Matt. We're going to have a conversation about the Dakota County Historical Society, and he's going to tell us all about the great organization. But let's learn a little bit about Matt before we talk about the Historical Society. So Matt, give us a little bit of your background.
Yeah, so I grew up in a small town in Wisconsin, Reedsburg, over by the Wisconsin Dells, and grew up living in that area my entire life until college, and really enjoyed playing sports and ended up getting into history. Some of my favorite classes were the history classes, and always ended up watching, movies and things like that with my dad, some of those old war movies, and I think that's what kind of triggered that love for history. And then eventually I went to UW Eau Claire, and I ended up getting a bachelor's degree in public history. I had originally wanted to be a history teacher, but they had some classes on museums, and I thought I liked museums, so I took those, and by the time it was all said and done, I had a degree in public history and went back and got my master's in public history as well, and worked for a few years at the Dunn County Historical Society in Menominee, Wisconsin, and then ended up finding a job that was open at the Dakota County Historical Society and applied for that, and so I've been the director there now for about 7.5 years.
Well, it sounds like you have a great background for your interest in the kind of work that you do as the executive director of the Dakota County Historical Society. So now's the time to tell us, what is the Dakota County Historical Society? Yeah,
so we're a 501c3 nonprofit, and we have a membership base of about 400 members, give or take, on an annual basis. And we operate 3 different historic sites within Dakota County. So our main headquarter museum is in South St. Paul, and that is our Loshie Museum. So back in 1939, Fred Loshie, who was the organizational founder, had as they like to put it in the history books at the museum, a group of historically minded individuals kind of banded together to start preserving the county's history. So they formed an organization, the Dakota County Historical and Archaeological Society, back in 1939, and Fred had a very big background and kind of a love with archaeology. And so that's how they got that title in there, and then over the years they dropped the archaeology out of it. And Fred continued to do archaeology, and because of that, we do have one of the largest archaeological collections by a county organization within the state of Minnesota. And so he'd go out, do his archaeology digs, and we'd end up with the findings for some of those, most of them within Dakota County, but a few outside. And as he started collecting these artifacts, he didn't stop with archaeology. He collected, all kinds of Dakota County artifacts in general, and some of his first collections books we have where he hand wrote artifact, number one, what it was, and so we have that, and over the years we've grown, and he was a former educator, so Fred was able to convince the South St. Paul High School to have the first museum be room 308 in the high school. So our first museum was built with exhibits in there, and utilized some of the students to help keep it open to the public and let people come in and see that. And then in 1955, when the City Hall was built in South St. Paul, Fred was able to talk with them and kind of convince them to have the museum in the basement, so one room with the basement, and it quickly outgrew that. And so we are a quasi-county entity, so we operate the Lashy Museum, which is owned by Dakota County. In 1976, they used bicentennial funds to create a museum for the county. And with that, that's been our headquarters and kind of the center of our operations since. And in 2005, our organization worked with the city of Hastings, and we took over the museum aspect of the Leduc estate. So the Minnesota Historical Society had transferred the house itself to the city of Hastings. And our operational agreement with them is we manage the museum aspects of it. So we provide the staff, the tours, exhibits, programs, special events, and then they maintain the site. And then about a decade later, in 2015, we started conversations with the Minnesota Historical Society, and a similar arrangement was made where we have a contract with them to operate the Sibley Historic Site, and that one's in Mendota, right across from Fort Snelling. And we provide the staffing, the tours, special events, and programs at that site. So between those three sites, they keep us busy.
Well, you've given us an interesting background and history of the Dakota County Historical Society, Matt. That's very fascinating. You talked a little bit about the interest that one of the founders of the society had about archaeological digs. Do you recall any of the most interesting and fascinating archaeological digs or relics that he found and left in the museum?
Yeah, because we have one of the largest collections, we have a lot of projectile points or arrowheads, and I think that's probably one of the most interesting parts is just the sheer number of them that we have. We did an archaeology study probably 6, 7, maybe even 8 years ago now. It was a little over 8 years because it was right before I had started. And one of the archaeologists that was involved in the study, couldn't believe the number of projectile points and arrowheads that we had. So I think just the number, but we also have some early tools that were used for by Native Americans, within the farming and kind of the agricultural side of it. So scrapers and some other tools similar to that. And we actually have an exhibit on display right now at the Lashy Museum that has a few of those artifacts included in that, and that one's all about agriculture. So it kind of looks at the early history of agriculture with the Native Americans that were living in the area up through about the 1950s or 60s.
Well, we're hoping today that the conversation we have is going to generate some interest among our viewers so that they can come and view what you have on display at the museums and become a museum supporter. Matt, can you phrase again for us what the mission of this historical society is?
Yeah, so our mission is to preserve, interpret, and promote the history of Dakota County. And in order for us to be able to do that, we utilize the three sites. We give guided tours during the summer season. So the Sibley site is open Memorial Day weekend through Labor Day weekend. And the Leduc Historic Estate is mid-October mid-May through mid-October. So we actually just closed that site about a week or so ago as we get ready for the off season. And so those two sites have guided tours where you pay an admission, come in, and you get a tour of the entire site. So if at the Sibley site, there's 3 different houses you go into, as well as the cold storage. At the Leduc Estate, you go into the main house, as well as outside on the grounds to kind of take in the landscape that was designed specifically, surrounding the house. The site itself, the house was built using a style book, Victorian Cottage Residences, that was published by Andrew Jackson Downing. And Mary LeDuc, William's wife, was paging through the book and found the house she dreamed of. And so she held it up to a window and traced it and got the reversed image of it, and that's how they were able to reverse that image and set it on the site. And Andrew Jackson Downing was really into landscape architecture at the same time. So that entire site kind of all ties in surrounding the house and the landscaping.
Well, that's really interesting about how this house came to be. That's now a museum, and you've told us a little bit about each of the three museums, but maybe we could pause and take each of the three museums and tell us what you believe or what people who come to visit them say are the main features or main attractions of each of the three.
Yeah, so if you go to our headquarter museum, that's the Loshie Museum in South St. Paul, we just went through a $1.2 million renovation, and all of that was kind of surrounding the idea of making it more ADA accessible. So they did upgrades and improvements to the ADA accessibility. So with that, this is the first time since 1978 that every exhibit within that space has been completely redone. So as you go in, you'll see 6 brand new exhibits. So even if you've been there, multiple times before, coming in now, you get a brand new experience. One with the appearance of the museum, but also the different exhibits that you can see. And some of the exhibits that we have installed there now, we still have our mainstay, the Lockheed Martin computer history exhibit. We did rework some of that, so if you've seen it before, you're now able to go kind of inside that space and interact with it. We have the Black Pioneers of Dakota County exhibit, agriculture as the foundation of Dakota County, and then Diaries of Jane Doe, women's medical history, from I believe it was 1880 through about 1920. And we also have some exhibits on women's suffrage and the role that Minnesota played in that. So yeah, a lot of different exhibits that you'll be able to see. So it's hard to highlight just one when everything's brand new for everyone to see.
Sure.
At the LeDuc Estate, you go in and you take a tour of the site. And I think one of the highlights of that site is we're very fortunate that this 1866 Gothic Revival house has an object theater. So as you go in on the tour, you start outside, but then you come sit inside William LeDuc's library. And it has the original bookshelves, a lot of the original books that he had when he had lived in the house. And with that, we have an object theater, so as a visitor, you sit and you watch a video that plays. It's a brief introduction to the site. And as they talk about the fireplace or the family sitting by the fireplace kind of glows and crackles, so it sounds like it's on. When they talk about using the polyopticon early projector system, they have it where a projector underneath it shines out and it lights up and shows images. And so we're pretty fortunate for an organization in a house of that size and being that old to have that kind of feature inside it for the public. And the Sibley site, I think the highlight of that is being able to go inside these houses that are on the grounds and date back to the 1840s, and not too many houses in Minnesota do. So being able to go in and see these houses and interact with the history that's there. One of the interesting pieces in the Sibley house is there's a cutout in the wall that has a plexiglass over it. And it lets you see inside to kind of see, they call it wattle and daub. So it's basically river mud as insulation with sticks kind of interwoven between it, and that was in the walls to kind of act as that insulation. And then up in the ceiling, they have another cutout where if you look up from that same spot, you can kind of see what's in between the floors. So a lot of visitors like being able to take a look at that and just kind of see how far we've come with insulation in houses from the 1840s to present day.
Fascinating. Yeah. It really is. So tell us a little bit, Matt, about how the Historical Society is organized. How is it governed? How is it funded? And how is it operated?
Yeah, so our organization, again, we're a 501c3 nonprofit, so we do have our own board of directors. We have a 12-person board that kind of governs the organization by setting policies, and then we have a professional staff that operates the museum. So our staff is relatively small for the amount of work that we're able to get done. We have 4 full-time staff members, myself and our associate director at the Lashy Museum, and then each of our sites, the Leduc Estate and the Sibley site, have a full-time site supervisor there. And then the rest of our employees are part-time. So we have a part-time marketing and membership coordinator, and then depending on the year, about 6 to 8 site educators or tour guides. And so through the staff and the policies the board set, that's kind of how we operate these 3 sites. And we are a membership-based organization, so we do receive funds from the membership dues. We do have contracts with our partners for operating the site, so we do get funding for operational grants to offset that cost. And we do a lot of grant-funded projects as well. So when we do a variety of different projects, whether this last year we got a grant to hire a drone photographer to get aerial photos of the Burnsville area. So the project-based grants are always a very key part of what we do. We have 2 really large projects we're working on right now. One at the Leduc Estate with our George Daniels project. And that one, we have a grant right now that's allowing us to hire a consultant to come in and create an exhibit concept that'll be outside in our carriage barn that explores the early African American history for that region in Minnesota as well. And that in total, once it's all said and done, will be a $200,000 to $300,000 project. And we have our children's exhibit at the Lashy Museum that we're just getting ready to go into the final design phase for that. And once that's done, we'll have a fundraising effort that'll go into place where we try and bring in some additional funds to offset that cost. So again, a lot of project-based funding through grants, and then general donations from our membership and membership dues.
Well, let's ask the question at this point. If some individual or some organization would like to be a supporter and contribute to the support of the Historical Society, how would they do that?
Yeah, we have a number of different ways. So we offer memberships to our organization that, depending on the level that you are at, has increasing benefits. So the lower end of that is a $25 membership all the way up to a $500 membership. And as you get to the higher membership, the benefits increase. All members get free general tour admission to all 3 of our sites. They also get discounts to our gift shops. We have a publication that we've been doing since I believe it was 1965 called Over the Years. And so all of our members get a copy of those as well. And then as you get into the higher levels, $100 and above, you start to get into the benefits of plus ones, where you can bring a guest with you unlimited number of times to general tours. And then again, as you increase to higher levels, that's when we start to have the benefits of free event passes and some of those areas. But we also have business sponsorship opportunities as a member of the organization or as specific event partners. But then we also have members in just the general public that support us by offering items on donation. So as they're cleaning out their house or a family member's house, they might come across something that they think, this should be saved, we don't want to throw it away. And we always encourage people, if they come across something that they think we'd be interested in, to give us a call ahead of time. You're welcome to bring it down, but we can't take everything. So we always encourage a phone call first to let them know and talk through that with them. So those are kind of the main areas. And then just general event attendance, coming to the sites and exploring the history.
So if any of our viewers have any historical items that they think would be of interest to visitors that come to the museums, they should contact you. I know we have the phone number that's on the screen. We flash it there on occasion, and the website as well. So that's how they could contact you and say, we have something that we think has historical value. We'd like to have you take a look at it.
Yeah, they give us a call. We kind of talk through what the item is. we make sure we don't already have something in our collection that's the same. If what we're being offered is in better condition, we might take that. But if we don't take it, we also try and make sure that we can give you a couple of other places to check to see, because again, the last thing we want is people throwing everything out. But we also know we can't save everything at the same time. So we try and find other organizations or locations that might be of interest to them.
So if we didn't consider the pandemic years, what would be the average number of visitors that would come through each of those museums in the course of a year?
Yeah, so our sites get used quite frequently. Our Lashy Museum, we're up to about 5,000 visitors a year. And that's a large increase actually from what it had been about 10 years ago. And we're doing a lot more programming. We're actually on pace this year to surpass that. So that's good to see that people are coming in wanting to see the exhibits in the new space. And then the Lashy, or the Leduc Estate and the Sibley site, they get about 5,000 to 10,000 visitors every year. So across the entire organization, we get about 20,000 to 25,000 visitors to our sites. But we also do a lot of community programming where we go out to the community. So doing community education classes where we just pick a topic and present on that. School groups, we offer free admission to all kids that come through on school tours, and that can be homeschool, private school, public school, high school, college. As long as they're part of a school group coming through on a tour, we get free admission to them, which is sponsored by the Friends of the Sibley Historic Site and then the Hastings Area Historical Society. And the Hastings Area Historical Society started, for years they were operating as a Friends group, and they changed their name, but they still support the school tour program. But then we also go out to the schools, and one of the things we've been doing a lot of recently is presentations to the classrooms. And they bring in 3 different classes into this space, and we were just at a school a couple of weeks ago that had 3 classrooms come together, and we talked about the fur trade. And we have a history trunk that we pull items out of that kind of show what the fur trappers would have been using at the time. And we really started doing that this last spring, and we've reached about 600 to 800 kids in that time frame from all across the county, but also outside of the county throughout the metro.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
I know that you have coming up here in January the annual meeting of the Historical Society, and there's a special program I think that you're contemplating. So tell our viewers a little bit about that, because I think they may be interested.
Yeah, we have our annual meeting in January, and it's scheduled for January 20th. I guess it'll be 2024 now. And with that, our program will be, we're tentatively calling it 9/11, Dakota County Aviation Perspective. And Dakota County has a very deep history in the aviation. A lot of Dakota County residents that fought during World War I were pilots, and they came back and they continued flying. And so Northwest Airways, at one point, their mail service was operated through a couple of Dakota County pilots, and they were some of the early pilots that they had flying for them. But also having, with this program specifically, looking at having pilots giving their perspective of what it was like while they were flying during 9/11. Having an air traffic controller that's going to talk about what it was like for them, in their job and what that was like, before, during, and then after 9/11. And then also a CEO of airports to, give that perspective of what was going through his head as this was going on. And then also talk about what it was like before and then after, what changes were implemented due to that.
Would this be open to anyone in the community who wanted to become, and participate in the annual meeting program?
Yeah, our event will be posted on our website once all the details are finalized, so you can check there. But it will be open to the public. We'll have a lunch as part of it, so you get a meal and a presentation, and we'll have a silent auction and a raffle. But members of the public are invited to attend, and all they have to do is sign up.
Well, we have a couple of minutes left in the program today, Matt. This is just absolutely entertaining and fascinating to hear you talk so emphatically and enthusiastically about the Dakota County Historical Society. One question as we wrap up, what's the most challenging and rewarding parts of your job?
Yeah, I think the most challenging is just the development and fundraising. You know, as I mentioned, we've had a lot of success with just project-based funding, but you know, we want to make sure we're a stable organization moving forward. Mm-hmm. So trying to expand our fundraising base, bringing businesses in, but that's also probably, you know, the most rewarding as well, is being able to see these projects come to fruition, and you know, having the public be able to come in and learn about Dakota County history through programs and exhibits. So.
Yeah. Well, you do a great job. We can tell from the way you describe the museums and the work that they do and the value that they bring to the community that they serve, that it's just a rewarding kind of role for you to be in there. And you know, we want to wish you continued success as you work to keep history alive and interesting for the communities, for individuals, and for organizations who'd like to be a part of the work that you're doing there. So good luck and best wishes for this annual meeting. And the program sounds like it's something that has really fascinating ties to Dakota County and the tragedy of 9/11. And I know you have some interesting guests who are coming in to be a part of that program. Our guest on Access to Democracy today has been Matt Carter, the Executive Director of the Dakota County Historical Society. Matt, thank you very much for being a guest on our program.
Yeah, thank you for letting me share our history.